and then move to the ETN. We can't record.
No, we can't record this. We're going to record this right now. This is our introduction.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree what you're saying. So I agree 100%. I believe that we're living in some sort of matrix, right?
Yeah.
And people are plugged in and people are unplugged. And there's some people that can plug in and out. And you need to plug in and out. You need to be that person that can navigate through the taxes, navigate through the fact that
you got to play the game.
The roads are paved by a centralized source called your town and your state officials.
Mm-hmm.
That taxes happen for your property. But what you need to do is you need to set yourself up. That's why I tell you to get freaking solar panels. Is so that you can go off grid if you need to go off grid too. You got to be able to be flexible. Because like I said when we were talking,
because they cut the electricity at my house, I'm fucked.
That's it. You're fucked. Yeah.
I have no backup.
Yeah. There's. I'll send you a link for a generator.
And generator, that's another problem because the gasoline is.
We're still, even though I'm on Google, we still got the camera going and shit. But I just wanted to show you this website real quick. It's called Jackery.com. And these are, I think, up to 2,000 watt solar generators. Then you buy the generator pack. And
I would do something more like that than getting the one put on my house.
I'm about to invest in this right now. They're for like camping and RV, so they'll only do 2,000 watts. I don't know how many watts you would need to run a whole house, but I have I think it's like a 10,000 watt generator or something like that.
So what if you bought two of them?
It might be 100,000 watt generator. Well, there's different levels of battery packs. And then the bigger the output of the battery pack you get, the more solar panels you have to buy.
Right.
What I was thinking about doing was going to Harbor Freight Tools first and buying one of their solar panels and fucking around with it with just light bulbs and maybe if I build a chicken coop, something to keep the water warm in the winter time or something like that. Learning that technology and then that whatever that website is that I sent you, just the battery pack alone for the biggest one, you're looking at about $3,000. Then you got to put the solar panels on top of it. So once you're all said and done, you're looking at $5,000 investment.
But if it runs my whole house for $5,000,
if it can run your whole house,
and you don't have these gigantic solar panels on the front of your house.
What you'll do is keep that battery charging all day, and keep your lights off during the day, and then at night, boom, everything comes on for you. Or what you want to come on can come on.
Or use it during the at night. During the day you have no lights on, and then you're running electricity for your microwave and shit.
I think we need to be as self-sufficient as possible, but we also need to learn how to play within the matrix and know that it exists. And it's like when we were doing the Myanmar podcast, I said to you that it's all these like crime organizations that are running the world. Who would you rather have doing it? And who would you rather have doing the raping and the pillaging and the trafficking?
Yeah, the government or the military.
Or would you rather have the Biden crime family or the Trump crime family? And I'm telling you, with Trump's nationalist stuff, I would rather have the Trump crime family.
And he's coming out like he's talking all positive shit about this vaccine and shit, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
He lost any kind of respect from me. He lost because of what he did to push the vaccine.
Yeah,
fuck that. You should have never fucking done that.
Yeah, and at first he was all about the therapeutics and all that.
He could have had them holding a gun to friggin' time travel and Barron Trump's head. You don't know. You don't know what was going on behind the scenes. It's fucking ruthless. But anyway,
who do we have?
I'm Matt.
I'm Eric.
And today we talked to Carla Gericke from the Free State Project. She was president of the Free State Project for a while. And I love her whole attitude, man. She comes around and it's just like rays of optimism. And she has a book called I
had it up here. Hold on.
Yeah, get it up again because I'm having a wicked bad brain fart right now. I can't think of the word. The word's on the tip of my tongue.
It is called The Ecstatic Pessimist.
Ecstatic Pessimist. And she's definitely not a pessimist. And she's been doing some real work on herself over the past few years. And she came on our podcast to talk a little bit about that, plus talk a little bit about the Free State Project. And she's going to come back on and we're going to do a deep dive into pine tree riots here in New Hampshire.
Which I didn't know actually happened in New Hampshire. And if you haven't looked it up, look it up. It's pretty freaking
Just
cool.
go to the Wikipedia and look it up, and that'll be a little teaser before our podcast.
And hold on 1 second. I got to get one more thing.
When you see the red flag with the little pine tree up in the corner, that's to symbolize the pine tree riot. And basically, that was the test run for the Boston Tea Party, which kicked off the American Revolution, according to our revisionist history books. But he's bringing out whiskey.
Well, today is June 4th.
June 4th.
And if
Good
you
day.
listen to our podcast, you know that today is Marvin Heemeyer Killdozer Day.
Mm-hmm.
So in honor of Marvin Heemeyer,
Reasonable
one back.
man brought to do unreasonable things. If you haven't watched or listened to the little mini kind of off the cuff, I hit record on my phone while Eric and I were talking, and we went into some of the stuff that you don't really, our thoughts on Heemeyer and the whole Killdozer thing. That was awesome.
And like there's a documentary on I don't know if it's still on Netflix.
Probably.
But they kind of make it look like he's crazy. But in all reality, it was just a guy who the government just pushed too far, and he lost everything because of an unfair. What's the line of a better term? An unfair government.
He wasn't fitting in with the town, and the good old boys didn't like him. And it was good old boy Cowboy Colorado, and they wanted him to fuck out because they wanted that property.
Yeah. So
unreal.
In honor of Marv,
happy Killdozer Day.
And enjoy our awesome podcast
with Carla Gericke.
It's not a political statement. It's a patriotic duty.
And the editors of great newspapers, such as yours, owe a common obligation to the people.
But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream.
What are you people? On dope?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
But we have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
It's always nice to hear.
So we started recording. I like to kind of get going right off the jump with these things, and I kind of like the fidgeting around and the small talk that we have.
All right, fidget away. That one's not going to work.
So
okay, hold on. I got to put my old lady glasses back on.
Go for it. Perfect.
Continue. All right. All right, I guess this is what we're doing. We're going, all right, that's better, I guess. Right. Sorry, clearly I combed my hair for the occasion.
Perfect. We're excited to have you here and joining us tonight. I'm Matt. I'm the one who reached out to you. This is Eric.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So
hi, guys.
We have this little podcast we started. We dip into a little bit with geopolitical issues, and it kind of started out with us bitching about the state of what was going on throughout 2020. We met in a Facebook town group here, and we got to talking, and we said let's start a podcast. So here we are, 22, year 23 right now, episodes in.
Good for you. That's amazing. That's great.
It's fun doing it. We're meeting a lot of great people on the road of learning everything there is to know about podcasting and becoming a member of the I guess alternative media community or whatever.
Community.
There we go.
So a while ago in January, we had Aaron Day on. And when I posted that episode up, I think he retweeted it or somehow through him, a tweet from you came up. And I started digging into you. And I said, I got to talk to this lady. She sounds awesome. And, I started looking at, your website. So let's do a small introduction right now. So we're at the Resistance Chronicle. Our guest is Carla Gericke. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
Because I've seen it. I heard you once saying Gericke, and then I heard a podcast with you recently, and they pronounced it differently. So I wanted to make sure. So it's Carla Gericke. Welcome to the Resistance Chronicle. We are psyched to have you here. We're based out of New Hampshire, as you know. You're based out of New Hampshire. Exactly. Thumbs up. And I guess if we could just get started, if you could just give us a quick, CV and go through the book and all that stuff and get our listeners familiar with who you are and what you've done, what brought you to the States and then New Hampshire. I mean, we'd love to hear the quick biography of it all. It would be awesome.
Sure. So I feel like I should go. My origin story is I was actually born in South Africa in the 70s. My dad was in the Foreign Service. And so he, as a diplomat, I kind of grew up all over the world. So we spent time in America in the 70s in New York City. And then I ended up in boarding school. My parents lived in Brazil and in Sweden and stuff. So I got to travel a lot as a child. But also I grew up in a police state, right, under apartheid. I think we're starting to see totalitarianism has various different flavors. South Africa's at the time was sort of a nationalistic, separatistic, vibe going on. obviously really sucked for Black people, but it wasn't that awesome for white people either. And then when I was in law school, I won a green card in the green card lottery. So my parents had written me in, and they had, half jokingly, my boyfriend and I said, oh, well, if one of us wins the green card, we'll get married, we'll move to America, we'll go on this giant adventure. And lo and behold, I won a green card. So I got married. We came on a giant adventure and landed in San Francisco. My husband, to whom I am still married after I think it's 28 years. It's been a hot second. We landed in San Francisco. He's a techie, so he was sort of in the tech sector. I retook the bar exam. I started practicing in-house. So I worked for tech companies like Logitech and Apple Computer. I actually worked on Steve Jobs' return to Apple and his acquisition of Next, and, was sort of integrated in that San Francisco high-tech industry, was also deeply troubled when I had to lay off 1,000 people in my company, including myself. And it was around about that time, and this is when the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, that I started kind of going, what's going on in the world? First of all, everyone was like, Y2K, Y2K, Y2K. And I remember even back then being like, these people seem to be going bananas about something that none of the techies really seemed that worried about. I went to all these conferences and it just, it sort of fed into that bubble. And then when the bubble burst and obviously the entire tech industry was just decimated, my husband's company folded. We actually left San Francisco for a while, ended up backpacking through Southeast Asia and India, went back to South Africa for about 2.5 years, and then landed in New York City. I had realized I did not really want to be a lawyer, so I went back to school, wrote a book, and then around about the second, economic crisis in 2008, when the real estate bubble burst, we actually moved to New Hampshire. So I chose New Hampshire as my home. I think it's it's the best kept secret that I'm trying to make a little less secret. We just want the right kind of people, So in a nutshell, the Free State Project is basically a movement to try and bring liberty-minded, libertarian-minded people, lots of Ron Paul kind of flavor, constitutionalists, just trying to get people who are like-minded in the sense that, hey, maybe the non-aggression principle counts for something, but you know what? So does property rights. And so we're trying to kind of get those kinds of folks to move here. So that's it. I moved in 2008 in a blizzard. Do not recommend. But I love it here. New Hampshire is just an amazing state.
And you came to New Hampshire via the Free State Project?
Yeah, actually I did. So I learned about the Free State Project in 2003-ish, I think, is when I signed up. So it was the brainchild of a guy called Jason Sarens. He actually works at St. A's now. And he wrote a paper back, so it must have been, 2001. And he was really frustrated that, specifically with libertarian politics, libertarians just don't get anywhere. It's not because we don't exist or because these ideas aren't good or any of those things. It's just, it's a fairly new idea in the history of ideas of the world, this notion that we, have self-ownership and actually every human interaction should be consensual, and one group of people, just because they're the majority on that particular issue, don't get to say, well, 49 of you got to suck it up and just do what I say. So he was like, what would happen if a bunch of us actually concentrated somewhere? If we actually, instead of, being millions of people all over the country, if we kind of got together, maybe we could get this off the ground and do I guess a proof of concept, right? To really just show people that, the ideas of liberty work. And how do we know they work? Because they work, when America started and people were free to do what they wanted to do. This was a very prosperous country. And as we've introduced more and more and more and more and more regulations, to the extent where one might even argue last year, we were on a global lockdown, which arguably is kind of like putting people in camps, right? Like it's just, it was framed in a very smart way, but it was sort of this voluntary imprisonment. And I'm not going to let the streets of the world go without at least, a good old fashioned try here.
Carla, with the schools shut down last year, and just to touch on your point about the lockdowns, I was totally expecting the bus companies to send buses through towns and start rounding people up based on do you have COVID? Could you have COVID?
Because they were doing that somewhere.
We were hearing these crazy stories in Canada, like the police breaking into people's houses and pulling them out. And it's like only a matter of time before you can, see this happening in the States. And now to top it off with the riots that were happening all over the country, it was just an absolutely bananas year. And then we had an election to boot. And you had a little piece of election running yourself, right? You were running for Senate here?
So I have now 3 times run and lost for the New Hampshire Senate. But I will say this, it's a big swing. My district is District 20. It encompasses like half of Manchester and all of Goffstown. Okay. It's, so it's a mix of sort of urban and rural. In 2016, when I ran Republican. I ran because they could not find someone to go up against Lou D'Alessandro. He's the self-declared lion of the Senate. He's been there 24 years. He's in his mid-80s. He's kind of an institution. And so, no one was crazy enough, I guess, to do it. And I was like, sure, what do I have to lose? Literally nothing, right? So in 2016, and I mean, I'm not joking when I say it was at like 4:00 in the afternoon phone call, and the filing period closed at 5:00. And I still had to ask my husband if he thought it was a good or a bad idea. You couldn't file downtown. You actually had to drive to Concord. And it was bike week. So the traffic was like bananas. I went through the toll gate. I got to Concord and I double parked my car and just like ran up the steps with 3 minutes to go. Just like slid into Gardner's office and he was like, who is this? And I was like, I don't want a picture. He was just like, what is this? In 2018, so I got like 39-40% that race. In 2018, a really cool thing happened. I was running again Republican. And honestly, I will say to people, look at the Republican platform in New Hampshire. It is very liberty forward. It talks about individual rights. It is a good, solid platform. I feel, entirely comfortable saying, I can vote that way. But in 2018, a bunch of LP, so Libertarian, Big L, Libertarian Party people were like, we're going to write you in anyway. And I was like, okay. So here in New Hampshire, you actually have this, it's called a fusion candidate, and you can actually be the person for on 2 parties. Some people who are very well known in the state actually run Dem and Republican sometimes. Okay. So I knew I had, the way it works is you have to get 30 write-ins. And if you get the 30 write-ins, then you'll be on the ballot for both those parties. And I was fairly confident we had the number. My district's big, and I thought I had it just in my personal ward here in Ward 11. But when they read the results, they were like, no, you didn't get any write-ins in Ward 11. And I was like, that seems weird. So I filed for a recount because why not? And lo and behold, there was a screw up somewhere, and they did miscount, and so I ended up being on the ballot both on the LP and the Republican Party. So that was fun.
They missed all 30 write-ins for you.
Yeah. So to be fair, because we're all scratching our heads a little bit on election integrity nationwide, I think. But to be fair, I think what happened was they filled in that there were write-ins. Like, I think it was a spreadsheet mistake, like where they were indicating there were write-ins, but they didn't write in the right number. But regardless of what the reason is, here is something that I have noticed, right? There are consistently all these discrepancies. And a lot of it doesn't have to be, intentional. I mean, even, we can arc and razor it. We could say, the likely explanation is just incompetence, I mean, let's say for the sake of argument, the virus was, lab created and escaped a lab somewhere. It's still a pretty shitty virus if it was designed to kill mankind. So, sometimes we should be grateful for the incompetency we are competing against.
Not only is it a pretty shitty virus that it didn't kill mankind, the only way you'd find out that you had it is if you get a giant Q-tip stuck up your nose.
Right? Which, people forget this, but last year, I mean, it might be scrubbed off the internet now, but I'm pretty sure I have a screen grab that the CDC sent out over 200,000 contaminated swabs that were contaminated with COVID. And I'm like, how do you make mistakes like that?
That doesn't even happen. Like, that shouldn't even happen.
No.
It's sealed. Like, what? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
You make it, you put it in the package, and then that's it. You send it out.
There's so much stuff happening throughout in history in general, right? You could say that there's from the creation of the Federal Reserve all the way through history, the moon landing. This is just another feather in the cap, I think, of whoever is really running the show, the head of the octopus here. What they're doing, and they found out that they can just lock us down like that. And people are just going to march along with it and not ask any questions.
I think it's the fear. You gotta make people scared.
Scared.
Make them scared, they'll do whatever you want.
Give them.
Yeah, and that was what was very clever about what they did. But I'm very solution based, and I think that's why I really love what we're doing with the Free State Project and the allies we've built. Right. Yeah. So, this last year, I mean, I've met amazing, like 10th generation Granite Staters, but also just people who, have actually also moved here for the same reasons over time, or they've moved back because their family's from here. And there's this sense that, I've always said, I know I can't fix the entire world, but, I think here in New Hampshire, if we come into it with a cultural mindset that says, we don't think what happened is acceptable. I think hopefully people will be a little more skeptical next time. But I think also we found all these allies, Rebuild, Reopen, a lot of the gun groups, all of that. And people are just like, I see you, and that's important because you said the words, they or, whoever. I actually think what's happening is something very positive for human liberty. And that is that the world is decentralizing at an alarming rate. Now they've centralized news, right? And how information is being disseminated. But even that's a stupid play because what they've done is they've actually forced people, I got banned on Facebook for a while. I'm definitely shadow banned now. I mean, it's just, it's mildly frustrating, but it's also making me reach out and, talk to more people and go to events. And ultimately, if we are going to have this sort of prison planet totalitarianism, some places are going to say no. I, for a fact, have said no. And so, I believe other people here will do the same, right? And then it really matters geographically where we are and who our community is. And so that is actually the beauty, So we have, for example, with the Free State Project, we have Porcfest coming up, right?
Sold out.
You're going?
No, it's sold out.
Yes, it has, but people, so we'll see. Don't let the organizer
there for a day or two. Would you recommend a certain day over? If I could only make it for one day, what day would you recommend as the day to go? Like the last day?
It depends, right? So the biggest days, of course, are always Saturday, and it kind of builds to that. But honestly, like if you like comedy and stuff, Thursday is going to be a pretty gangbusters day. We have Dave Smith is coming up with Robbie. Dave Smith's a comedian. He does the Part of the Problem podcast. He came out a couple of years ago. But then, Wednesday they're doing, so it would be good for people who, if it's sold out, to come earlier in the week so that we're not actually piling people with no tickets at the end of the week.
Yeah.
But every day is going to be special. It's going to be amazing. We have a series of programs talking about the history of the Free State Project, why we picked New Hampshire. People often ask that. And of course, it starts with the slogan like live free or die. Not the catchiest in a pandemic.
That depends.
Some of us still believe in it.
Yeah.
No, I believe it too, but it was pretty weird being up at the State House and everyone's chanting live free or die, and you're like, yeah, this is very real right now. Because the thing is, you have to believe that, right? Because you can't be live free or die, except if there's something that might actually kill you, then we'll lock you down.
Yeah.
Because that's absurd.
You're going to die unless people get sick.
Right.
Yeah.
So with the Free State Project and you guys here in the state and moving in, how are you finding the reception from Granite Staters? I know when the Free State Project first kind of started emerging, people were calling you guys terrorists, which is just absolutely absurd to even. If anybody even just looks up who Ron Paul is, they'll know that the Free State Project is no kind of terrorist organization. I'm sure you've done a lot of PR, or the Free State Project's done a lot of PR through the years. How is it now? It seems like everybody I talk to that's from New Hampshire, I know some folks from Claremont and other areas that were born and bred here in New Hampshire that absolutely love what Free State Project is doing. Do you find the same thing when you're traveling through the state and talking to people?
Yeah, I do. Honestly, the only people who don't like us are statists. I'm yet to be criticized by someone who does not get paid by the government and by my stolen dollars. So, my bleeding heart just says, don't really care that much. I do care about spreading ideas effectively and really helping people to understand that a lot of good things flow out of liberty, like when we looked at what happened last year, one of the things I said from the start is that when you make the wrong choices and when you eliminate choices, right? Because part of what we believe in a free market sort of society is that we're allowing competition because competition actually drives us to the best solutions fastest, right? That's the whole point of it, right? Is like, oh, we figured out this great system that allows to get from here to there as fast as possible. But when you have top-down control and centralization like we saw, you start to be like, oh, you're not allowed to use that medicine. Oh, you're not allowed to express that idea. Oh, you're not allowed to whatever. And now we're in this monopolistic sort of state health, public health, greater good channel, right? And it's like, well, you can't say it's the greater good if it's bad for me, because then whose greater good is it and why is it good? Like, who gets to decide, right?
It's greater good for me. It might be a greater good for you, but it's not good for me. So why should I have to be on board with that? I should be able to do what I feel is right. Exactly.
Right. And that's what freedom is, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not like we're stubborn to the point of unreason, right? Like I actually did wear a mask so my husband had come back from South Africa, like in, I think the last week in February, maybe first week in March. And we were like, we don't know what this is. Like we were in Mexico, then we were in South Africa, then we were in New Hampshire. And you're like, you don't want to be that asshole, right? Sorry, but who's like, oh, now I murdered, half of New Hampshire. So we were careful at the start, but then I look at source material. I don't listen to anyone. I don't watch the legacy news. So I was online reading reports, looking at charts, munging my own data. And I was like, well, this is a big nonsense sandwich we're getting sold. And having actually been through two of those cycles, Y2K, the 2008 collapse, I was like, oh, wait, I've been here before. Don't have to panic like I might have, 20 years ago, because I was like, here's the reality, folks. Half of this stuff that we drive ourselves crazy about is just in our heads.
Yeah.
We are just driving, like, it's not real, right? Your actual reality is usually quite fine. I'm not saying, we're all the wealthiest or we're all the whatever, but most of us have a roof over our heads. If you live in America, you will not go hungry if you don't want to. There is, enough people caring and helping and stuff. So like 98% of it is just us bananas in our own heads going, and I've worked really hard to silence that voice. And I'm hoping that I can help teach other people to do it too.
So I couldn't get you on here and have you come by if I didn't ask you about the Fauci emails and what you thought. And I know you've been really vocal about masks, after you figured things out that masks weren't the answer and these lockdowns weren't the answer, and very vocal about it, which is awesome. What do you think about this whole new thing with this Freedom of Information Act stuff coming from Washington Post and BuzzFeed, the two least suspecting places that I'd ever see? And what's up with all the redactions?
So I have several thoughts on that. I will start with the following. I did post a meme yesterday on social media that said something like, to all the people who called me crazy and a murderer over the years, the leaked Fauci emails, will vindicate me or something. I'm not phrasing it right, but it's on my wall.
Sorry, I deserve an apology. Yeah.
So this morning I'm checking, my phone, and I see a warning, and I am really mindful. I feel like it's part of my responsibility. I really do try and only share, source data, and that I get the facts fairly straight. And, you might get a percentage wrong here or there, but I want to be a trusted source for people that, if you say something, you're in the ballpark, you know what I mean? So I am mindful about what I share. So I saw this warning and I was like, misinformation. And I was like, the hell it is, right? So I look it up, and it's literally fact checked to say it's misinformation because it used the word leaked emails, not open government request emails, or FOIA request emails. Right. So they're saying it's fake news because it says it's a leaked email. Now, does that substantively change the content of the emails? No, right? So it's just one of those like propaganda levels, right? Mm-hmm. And sorry, my dog's like, hi, I want to play too. And
bring him on.
Sorry, hey, go away. So of course, it's kind of, it's nice to have that I told you so kind of experience. I mean, who doesn't love that, right? And especially when people, spend a year calling you names and all of that, it does feel good. But it's also deeply frustrating because we have to teach people to be more skeptical and to really start to put on those thinking caps and that sort of critical thinking stuff, right? Because they are indoctrinating and manipulating, and it's brain science at this stage, right? So we know if you actually study the history of propaganda and you study sort of mind control, which sounds tinfoil hatty, but the science is there. A lot of it is in messaging, in programming, and all this stuff. And I read a shocking to me study recently. I'm reading this book called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it sort of talks about both sides of your brain, those more long-term memory versus short-term memory, and how those things complement each other. But there was an experiment in which they took, I think it was college students, and they put them in separate rooms and they primed them with certain words, and they thought the words were what the experiment was about, but that wasn't it. So in one group had sort of normal words or maybe even high energy words. And then in the other group, they had all these, what they call the Florida effect words. So it was like slow, grumpy, napping, lethargic, dementia, just these like sort of old people terms, right? So they thought it was about the words, but the experiment was actually how fast they left the rooms they were in and walked to wherever they were told to go. And the group that saw the old people Florida effect words walked remarkably, measurably, statistically measurably slower than the others from one-time priming. So now imagine what the legacy media has done to people's minds, right? This constant news barrage. We know from the music they play. I mean, honestly, I say this at least 20 times a week. If you want to do something for your own health and mindset and really reclaiming your life for yourself and to live an optimal, full, good life, switch off legacy TV. Stop. Don't consume it. It is literally just there to make you unwell in your brain. I mean, there's nothing good that's going to come of it at this stage.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there was a real thing called Operation Mockingbird, and it was run, and it happened as soon as TV happened, and it's been running and going in the news stations, and 5 companies that own all the media, 10 companies that own all the food. Yeah, there's a pretty crazy, information campaign or misinformation campaign happening here. Speaking of, I guess, misinformation campaigns, you had something happen in where with the police, right? And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I see stuff that's kind of all over the place with it, and there was a landmark, case that you had with it. Break it down for us, and then what I want to do is get into after that. I want to start talking about Freedom Nom Nom, because that's why.
Oh, great.
That's why I really brought you on here. But I want to hear the where story, and then we got to get into that, and I want to get into food and eating and all that stuff.
Okay, great. Yeah. So in a nutshell, I got arrested for filming police officers during a late night traffic stop. This was back in 2010. So shockingly, was literally still with a video camera, not a cell phone camera. The good old days, right? And so we were going home. I was following people to their house. I was going to stay over because I had skis from Pat's Peak, and I'd taken them for the season, and I need to drop them off. And it was the last day, and it was kind of like last minute. And I didn't know where I was going, so I was just following these other people to their house. And so they pulled us over, and they wanted the front car and not me, but I didn't know where I was going, and so I was like, I can't leave. And also, you're being kind of weird and aggressive, officer. So I'm just going to film you. What do I know? They didn't like that. So anyway, so I got arrested. They took me to the police station. They originally charged me with, disobeying and sort of the catch-all, we didn't like your spirit with us, lady, So they charged me with that stuff, but it was a weird interaction. My cuffs were really tight. I complained. They made them tighter, all this stuff. So when I was about to leave, they didn't give me my camera back. And I was like, I need my video camera back. And the officer said, well, no, we're keeping it for evidence. And I was like, okay, I'm not really happy with that, but I understand. So that's fine. Give me a receipt to prove you took my camera so that we're all on the same page. And they refused to do that. And then I got difficult. Then they charged me with wiretapping, which was their mistake. That is a felony charge. And, I always joke about it, but then I read the other day, if you have been charged with a felony arrest, so felony arrest, not felony conviction, is now starting to have negative impacts on certain things. And so I was like, oh, it's not really a joke if someone's just like, well, we're charging you with felony arrest, even if you're not later.
Not innocent until proven guilty.
Not anymore, guys. I mean, not anymore. I was shocked with, we have some crypto and Bitcoin enthusiasts in the community, and the alphabet soups are coming for, for crypto. And and I'll get back to the point in a second, but I'm shocked because there is no more innocent till proven guilty. I mean, these people are being put on bail. They have to wear ankle bracelets. They're not allowed to meet or talk to certain people. They're not allowed to use computers. They are not allowed to drink. They are not allowed to.
They're screwing them.
And I'm like, but so you're basically giving someone a pre-sentence, right? So yeah.
Well,
So,
they left
anyway.
with Uncle Sam's money there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they could put the genie back in the bottle, so that's good for us. But you know, it is. I think we're definitely in that power structure. But again, more decentralized people fighting about stuff counts in our favor. All right, so they arrest me. They charge me with wiretapping. I decide, all right, you know what? I mean, I am a trained lawyer, and I was just like, I'm not going to let this one slide. And I also thought it was a pretty important issue, right? This was before we really knew, you know, are they going to say that is a First Amendment right? I mean, it seemed clear to most activists and First Amendment people that, yeah, sure, of course, you should be able to film police officers in the execution of their public duties while in public, like no brainer, right? And there was an earlier case called the Glick case. And that case took place on the Boston Commons the year before mine. And that was also a lawyer. And he was filming, but it was someone was giving a speech. He was filming the speech. The police officers came. There was an altercation. They took his camera. So in that case, they said, well, you do have a right to film, but you have the right to film in public during the day on the Boston Commons, which is like a known First Amendment thing. So it was this very narrowly tailored decision. And so they charged me. We went to my arraignment. They immediately dropped the charges. I think they were like, ooh, oh no, we've riled up these they arrested some other Free Staters that night too. So we were kind of like a crew and people were showing up en masse at court. And so they were like, no, we'll just drop the charges. And I was like, the hell you will. I told my lawyer, I'm like, you go tell the judge, I want them to reinstate the charges. I want to fight this. And they were like, who is this lady? And I was like, you tell him. And of course, the judge was like, you tell your crazy client to please go home, right? But I was like, you know what? I do have a good case, and I'm going to fight it on a federal level, on a civil liberties, perspective. So we did. It took 4 years. We took it all the way to the First Circuit Court. So, there's the Supreme Court, and then there are 9 circuit courts under that. So the one right under the Supreme Court, the First Circuit out of Boston is, it applies to about 13 million people. So it's most of New England and Puerto Rico. And so for anyone who's in any of that area, it is perfectly legal to film police officers. They cannot and should not confiscate your camera. You should not try and interfere, which just makes sense to me anyway, right? Like we're all in a situation. And for me, this has never been about confrontation. It's always been about being a witness. There's statistical proof that says when you are being watched, everyone behaves a little better. We know it's good for officer safety, all of that stuff. So they had made the argument, it applies in Boston on the Commons. And they were kind of trying to argue that, well, it doesn't apply when you're on the side of the road at 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, are you literally arguing the Constitution doesn't work after?
My rights, at what time do my rights go null and void? Is it 8?
Right? Right?
Differentiate if it's at dark. Well, it gets dark later now. So do I get to, exercise my rights till 9 o'clock? And in winter it's 4 o'clock? I only have to because it's dark at 4.
We have to set time limits on rights and viruses.
Right. well, I mean, the sad part is that, that's kind of what they're doing, right? Like we are seeing the institution of curfews. We did see that in several states. They didn't really do it here. The closest I saw really was that they stopped the tolls. I think it was at 9 or 10 at night. But I always said, look, if this was really about a virus and spreading germs around, wouldn't the number one thing be that you would stop is the tolls, the handing of gross money between people? So, I think for all of us thinking folk, we were like, man, if they could just come up with something that's like plausible and that at least passes the smell test. Right. I'm like, look, man, just persuade me. I'm willing to do it if it makes sense. But if you're just telling me to do things because you're stupid, no, I'm not going with that program.
Well, that kind of reminds me of so you were on a public road, right? When this happened, you were on a public road. You were not pulled over by the officer. You were then a bystander, just exercising your freedom of press, because that's what you are. You are part of the press, whether you have a credential or not. It's irrelevant. If Fox News gives you a credential, it's just something they made up that says this is you're a part of the press. But you are part of the press, and the Constitution is your press pass.
Yep.
And there's nothing that they can get you on. I mean, you're not interfering. You're not standing in his way from doing his job. There's no crime there.
Yeah. And now they know that. And not only that, I think the part I'm the proudest of is in this decision, they said that they do not have qualified immunity. So the important thing for folks to understand is what I would love to see happen in New Hampshire is that we have a culture of filming every single police encounter. They are starting to wear body cam cameras, and I think that is a good thing. I think it doesn't hurt to actually have records, right? But in New Hampshire, it turns out the body cam footage is exempt from our right to know laws, which is some mistake that I didn't know about till I got cheeky and tried to get them from an officer last year when I put out a fire for them, but that's another story. And they were like, oh no, that's exempt. So that's definitely something we need to fix, because what they're also doing is they're using them now for interviews so that the interviews are not subject to disclosure. So it's a runaround.
Well, is that
what I would love to see.
So they said this big thing, like, we're going to have them have body cameras, but the fine print was, but it can't be used for anything.
Yeah. But it could only be used for them to protect them, right? Because they're the only ones who have access to the info, which is why I think in order to level that playing field, and again, not from an animosity perspective, from a let's keep everyone safe perspective, every Granite Stater should film every police encounter. Even if you're just, if you just see it and it's on the sidewalk, just stop and just film it. Because that will change the culture, because it'll really create that vibe where everyone's like on better behavior, but they don't have qualified immunity. So if a police officer takes your camera, erases your footage, arrests you for filming them, only for filming them, you can sue them also in their personal capacity. Because what qualified immunity does, it's a special get out of free jail card for law enforcement, and they're extending it now to public officials. But basically what they say is, if you're a law enforcement officer, to us, they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? That's what we're constantly told. And so they are saying, well, unless they have ignorance of the law is no excuse. Unless you're the enforcer of the law, then it's an absolute defense. So what qualified immunity used to say is, oh, I didn't know that wasn't illegal, so oops, we won't do it next time. And now we're saying, at least for filming cops, there is no next time. You can sue them in their personal capacity. And the thinking there is to make them more mindful, to be like, oh, damn, my wife's going to be really mad if we lose the house because, I took this kid's phone because I was kind of being a jerk. And, so hopefully the culture becomes that we're all on better behavior. And the more we know, the more equipped we are to make better decisions.
Now, are you familiar with the protesters outside of Sununu's house?
Yes.
Now, from what I'm getting on that is they actually have a shot of kind of in your situation. So he was scared, made this ordinance saying that you can't protest in front of his house.
Yeah.
But they're on a public street.
Yes.
So as long as they don't go onto his property, there's nothing he can do. And to have them arrested and ticketed, now you violated their constitutional rights, in my opinion.
I agree with you. I mean, based on everything I know about the case, I think they have a pretty solid case. I hope I did recommend some lawyers and stuff. I'm hoping they are pursuing it. I would actually love to see the ACLU of New Hampshire come back on some of these cases. They've helped me over the years. They're not always right. But here's another thing, and I think this is something people have to start to accept. No one's always right. We are human beings. We are flawed. We fail. We try again. That's part of the human condition. And, you know, like I get so much grief because I try and work with everyone. Like I'll work with everyone. And, you know, I think life is just a diplomacy mission. Like if we don't believe in force, then all we're doing is everyone's just hanging out and being like, hey, let me tell you, what do you think? You know, but I get grief for like being in a photo. I was in a photo with Kristi Noem last year, and you know I do support legalized marijuana, and she's a big, you know, drug warrior, and people are like, how dare you be in a photo with some lady from South Dakota, you know? Or I went to the Vice President Pence's fundraising thing last night because I was kind of like, man, I haven't dressed up in a while. I'll go, you know, shake my butt around. And you know, I posted a photo this morning and everyone's like, oh, okay, you just tell him, you know, he's awful. And I'm like, can everyone just relax? It doesn't mean because you went to a function with some person that like you have subsumed their entire thought process and aura and whatever. All we have to do.
Yeah,
is
you're
keep
an
talking.
You're a sellout. You were at Pence's gala. You're a sellout. It's crazy. And I think it's all amplified by social media, through Facebook and through Twitter, and we know that.
Well, it kind of goes with the same thing. Like people say, like I still wear a mask even though I'm vaccinated because I don't want people to think I'm a Trump supporter. Like I heard that one. Like that's what you think about. Like, how about think about why you're wearing this fucking mask on your head when you're
but I think that's part of the entire insanity and the whole mind control and all of that. And this is going to segue into sort of healthier living and all of that stuff. I think the number one thing people have to stop worrying about is what other people think of you. Mm-hmm. Here's what you should care about is what do you think of you? And it's actually when I figured that out is when I really started to like heal and grow and change and make the right choices. Because that's really the relationship, right? It's kind of like, I mean, it's fine that, you know, because we're all on each other's fingertips and everyone's got an opinion and stuff, but it's genuinely just noise. It's back to that sort of notion of the community and looking people in the eye and all of that already puts all of us on better behavior because, you know, there's real energy exchange, there's real human, you know, life. But this whole thing of like these like this cancel culture and this just, you know, I was laughing. I was at some critical race theory thing up at the State House because I'm like, look, man, no one's going to like, I refuse to be an African-American anti-apartheid activist who voted for Nelson Mandela and get called a white supremacist. I'm like, no, you don't get to do that. That's like my line, man. Stop it, right? We aren't all inherently racist. All this nonsense of just pitting people against each other has to stop, right? But it has to start with, like, I don't actually get offended because I'm like, I know I'm not a racist. I know I'm a good person. So like, once I figure it out, it doesn't matter what the people who don't like you are going to say to you. They're not happy. They, you know, I'm just like out there going, go figure out what's wrong with you. Like if we're going to pretend there's one social contract in the world, I would say your only social contract is to take care of yourself. That's it, period. And once you can do that, meaning you're healthy, you're functioning, you don't have debt, you know how to change a wheel, I don't know, feed a chicken, whatever it is, right? Like once you've taken up your time and you're an optimal good human, then you could go and maybe go help the person next to you. But if we all just worked on us first, then that's how you heal the world. And also, we've been told, you know, the world's gotten so big and so small. But I saw this meme and it said, we were not designed to carry the weight of the world. You can't do it cognitively. We cannot do it. That's why people are so bananas and so anxious and so whatever. So instead of being like, I think I write about this in my essay in my book, The Ecstatic Pessimist. I'm actually an optimist, but these are stories of hope. But, I talk about how if you're living in the past, so it's a Lao, I think you said Lao Chow or something, Chihuahua or something, but you spell it TZU, right? Lao Tzu. I saw this little meme once and it said, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. And if you're anxious, you're living in the future. But if you're at peace, you're living in the present and you're living in the now. And so I really went on this journey to be like, how can I be fully present? Because what you do then is you're reclaiming your brain to be like, okay, like what's really happening, right? Full circle back to that. What is our real reality? And I think in order for us to heal the world, we're actually going to have to heal individual by individual by teaching him the choice and her. The choice is you have to heal yourself. And I mean that like literally your body, your mind, and your soul.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And that is infectious too. If you can heal yourself, other people around you are going to see you healing yourself, and they're going to want to do the same thing too, and jump on the bandwagon and do it. And I couldn't agree with you more.
And honestly,
or they'll try to knock you down.
Yeah,
either one.
That
or they'll be like, "Look at you asshole!"
You can weed those people out pretty quick, and if you keep your nose to the grindstone and you keep doing what's good for you and good for your family, those people will eventually just fade away. Yeah.
And that is right. And that's how you build a healthy community, right? Like, do you want to have people who want to knock you down? No, I want to be surrounded. That saying about you are who the people are that you surround yourself with. So you want to surround yourself with people who are, we all fail. I mean, it was a really big knock for me when I lost those Senate races. Like, I've always been very successful. If I set my mind to something, I'm like, I'm going to knock this out. But I was not in a good space. I was drinking way too much. The drinking was as a result of anxiety because I'd been forced into this very public role that I had never sought. So I didn't really know what to do with the attention, and it made me uncomfortable. And, so like I just had a lot of things to work through. And so I genuinely want people to understand, like, if you set your mind to better habits, and then you make it a routine, and the routine part is the hard part because we all hate that. But here's the God's honest truth. If you, decide to get enough sleep, sleep is so important. Like half of the world's problems are that people are not sleeping enough. Your brain has to detox. And, I would get like 4 hours of sleep and like for years on end, and I was just like, wow, so I could see a remarkable change with sleep, eating right, low carb, medium protein, try and get a grass-fed protein and high good fats. And for the ladies, it's the hardest thing to change your mind because we were told, certainly my generation, we were just told low fat, fat will kill you, fat will make you fat will, and turns out like almost everything the government has ever told us, they got it totally wrong.
Yeah, like now keto's the big thing where it's high fat, low carbs.
Yeah. And
a lot of friends that are dabbling into that now.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I lost 65 pounds. I've kept it off for like 4 years. Well, 2 years now. I mean, it took 2 years to lose and it's been off for 2 years. I'm super active again. I'm back at doing my yoga practice, meditation, honestly, journaling. For years and years and years, everyone's like, you should journal. And I was like, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that, And also I was drinking a lot, so I was blacking out at night. So, where I journal now, I couldn't maybe do it in the past. But the notion of journaling, and a lot of people I know do them on apps. You can do these micro apps where you just get your moods. But the routine of it was twofold. One was I had to create a routine, that something that I could promise myself and stick to for an entire year, and just be like, I did that one thing and I didn't lie to myself. I didn't screw it up. And for 1 year, I was like, I promised myself I was going to do yoga every Sunday, call my parents every Sunday, and write in my journal every day. And I did that for a year, and it changed my life because I made a promise to myself that I kept. Then the like not drinking and all that stuff just flowed from there, because I had created a base of like retrust with myself. And so, and it makes you mindful when you're writing and you're thinking about, how did I behave today? Could I have done this better? Was I good to my spouse, to my partner, to my children, to my dog, who is not happy with me right now? She's all grumpy. Go ahead.
Feel free to have your dog make an appearance if you want. I don't know how
she did leave again.
Oh.
So I highly recommend trying to put a couple of routines in your life, really thinking about, how you're fueling your life, right? Because so many of us, and I've said this throughout COVID, I was shocked at how people reacted, because everyone was so scared of dying. But I was like, but how are you living? How are you living? Like, if you're just, it would be these people, and I would see them, and they're toddling into the Rite Aid with 2 masks on, and then they come outside and they pull it off and they light a cigarette. And I was just like, no, I mean, I don't mind. Feel free to smoke, just to make it my problem. That's all I got to say.
You'd be the first people to say you're going to kill people because you're not wearing a mask.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, but you're smoking a cigarette. Like,
right.
You kind of, why even have the mask on at that point? I don't know.
No, it's been very bananas. But the point is, there is a lot of information on my website, so I will say that. But I highly recommend, for people who are curious or who want to make changes, do them in small baby steps. Again, make one promise to yourself and stick to it. And then really think about that mindset, right? Where you're being mindful and trying to be in the now, because when we're in the now, we're at peace, right? And so if we can bring more and more people into the now, into the present, into not being anxious or depressed, but truly not necessarily happy. Happiness can be an illusion or something we need to pursue. But the more you do good things for yourself, the happier it does become, because it's part of that self-ownership, right? So you're taking command of yourself and making those decisions. And it starts, again, from what you're eating, how you're sleeping, how you're treating the people around you, and, where your mind is.
You become comfortable in your own skin, basically.
Yeah.
So this whole healthy eating has brought you into doing a cooking show, Freedom Nom Nom. And it looks like it just started, and I love the name. And I don't know if you know this. I'm going to send you my information. I'm a chef by trade.
I saw that in your thing, yeah.
I do food on a regular basis. I don't get into too much about what the actual business is that I do on the podcast and whatnot, but I'll share that with you at another time. But how did you get inspired to do a cooking show? I've been dying to do one, and I don't have the nerve to do it. It's out there. It really is, because anything can happen.
Yeah. So I think partly. So I will go. It's freedom, nom nom. I'm going to get someone to record that for me. Partly it was for this year. I'd set a goal where I was like, oh, I want to bring out another book. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to have time. I am slowly working on the book about the court case, but there's a lot of moving parts, and it's actually quite detail oriented and stuff. So I've been doing this other TV show, which is on cable access. It's called Manch Talk, and it's done professionally down by the Manchester Public Television and all of that. And people are complaining because, I feel like I wish my audience would grow faster, and everyone's like, you got to make short clips, you know, like people don't have time or they don't know you. And so I set all these goals to be like, figure out how to edit something, figure out how to be more natural in front of the camera, like all that stuff, right? Because all of these things are growth, because it also stems from, you know, gaining the confidence, being sure and mindful that you actually know what you're going to say. You know, it's always a surprise what's coming out of my mouth. So these days I'm like, I have a vague idea what I'm going to say next. So I don't know, I said to my husband, I was like, you know, I'm just going to do this once a week, just kind of to practice stuff. And I've enjoyed it, so I've stuck to it. I've only done 5 episodes. I'm probably going to do 10 and then start to bring friends and stuff in. Everything's very rustic and, you know, easy to make. Most of it's in one pan, one skillet, kind of rustic iron skillet cooking. But also all paleo, keto. So trying to find like some of those recipes and stuff. And also to show people it's not that hard, right? People, I think, have this sense that or maybe it's not hard when you're doing it ghetto style like I cook, but, you know, everyone says it tastes good. So I don't know if my technique's there, but, you know, in the end, it just matters what it tastes like, right?
How you get from point A to point B, it's okay. As long as it tastes good and that end product is perfect. Other chefs may tell you otherwise, but I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter. I think it's great. And I love the video. I think it was like 10 seconds long and you're like, oh, a little bit of Carla spit.
Hey, so that's awesome because that means it paid off because that was the first clip I ever made. So someone watched it.
Episodes, if you're looking to bring someone on, I'll bring my crypto knives over and we'll go from there. I found this great company out of Texas that you can buy knives with cryptocurrency. So I bought.
Oh wow, that's awesome to hear.
You grab one knife with Raven coin, and the other ones with Bitcoin. So I've been.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'll send you the guy's information. He's got some really nice craft made, artisan made, U.S. made knives forged by real blacksmiths and whatnot.
Ooh, and I keep saying maybe someone can teach me knife skills. I think the muscle memory may be too late for me, but I'm definitely.
I'll get
part
you.
of the show is also that notion that again, it doesn't really matter. We get in our own way, and really, we should just be doing or figuring out what we're passionate about. And if you're passionate about something and it's your hobby, even if I don't make a red cent ever, I'm like, I cook every day. I'm literally just putting the camera on while I'm cooking something, right? I have to make it anyway. So I may as well share my passion with other people.
So is that your kitchen that you're in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any plans on a studio kitchen or anything like that? Or are you too new to the game right now? Am I pushing?
I mean, I'm too new to the game. Let me like figure out lighting, or I did figure out a second cut to the pen this weekend. So, baby steps. It's just me. We live in this beautiful time where I think maybe our job in the world, every single human being's job in the world, is to figure out what you love and to then give that gift to other people. That is actually what the market is. Like if we take all the propaganda away about capitalism's bad or socialism or whatever, right? Really, in some ways, both those things are the human condition. We do want to be good to our friends and neighbors, right? That's the socialism. But we can't do it by stealing or enforcing stealing and bad things, right? It all has to be voluntary. Mm-hmm. And so when you figure out what you love, and you're like, I want to give this to you. And if you love what I love, you give me money. I'm like, that's a pretty good world. And that's really just what, we're trying to do again. I think we've moved so far away from stuff, and we should just focus on ourselves, focus on self-ownership, focus on what you're passionate about, and then give that gift to the rest of the world. And then I think we'll probably be in pretty good shape.
Now, I know he told me that you know about this. I'm now curious. The Pine Tree Riot.
Yes.
I saw that on your note, and I was like, I looked at it, and I was like, all right, now I got to know more.
What do you think?
Yeah, so
I tell a little story about it, or do you want to do that another time? It's up to you. I know we've kept you for an hour, and I don't want to hold you up on a Friday night. It's totally up to you.
It's up to you.
So I would love to come back and tell you about the Pine Tree Riot,
Let's do
because that
it.
way I get to come back.
Into the Pine Tree Riot, that would be awesome. That would be absolutely great. And I think what you said there, that little bit in the end, that was perfect. You hit the nail on the head right there. Taking care of ourselves. And I don't want to take up any more of your time on a Friday night. I feel bad. I appreciate you coming on. Can you close it out with where we can find you?
Yes, so people can find me at carlagericke.com, and that's Gericke. My book is available on Amazon and on my website. I blog almost daily. I have a YouTube channel. I have an Odyssey channel. Please, folks, subscribe. My Freedom Nom Nom is going to be a sleeper hit once I figure it all out. I'm going to definitely continue with that because I enjoy it, and I like to share something I love with the world so that we can all have a lovelier world.
I love that passion. Don't lose it.
I'm so glad you commented somewhere on Twitter and I saw it and we were able to connect. This was awesome.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
And we're taking you up on that. And we'll be reaching out to you about the knife company, my chef stuff, and coming back to do a dive into the Pine Tree Riots.
That sounds awesome. Anytime, probably mid to late August. From there, I'm booked out till then, but after that, I'd love to do something.
That's fine. Summers are tough too, so awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Peace out.